Well, good afternoon, financial professionals. My name is Brendan Derone, Managing Partner and Chief Distribution Officer here at E4 Insurance Services, welcoming you to another installment of the BREW, building relationships every week. Thanks for tuning in, and for those of you joining the BREW for the first time, we like to start the BREWcast by celebrating today's National Days. We got an odd collection of national days today. It's National Open an Umbrella Indoors Day. I had really no idea why you do that unless you're outdoors and get wet and want to dry it off, but apparently it's something related to getting rid of superstition. So go ahead, try that. If you're in Wisconsin, it's a beautiful day though. Enjoy the early spring. It's also National Coconut Torte Day. Not my favorite choice by any means, but if you like it, go find one. National Canine Veterans Day. And then we added a national week today because it's National Girl Scouts Cookie Week. So I'm sure you've seen those Girl Scout cookies for sale all over, but love to get the kids started in sales young, and no better way than National Girl Scout Cookie Week. So have at it. As a reminder, March's Focus Planning Series theme is Key Person Insurance. And for today's brew, we've invited Chris Henderson, Managing Director at M3 Financial. Chris has successfully advised businesses on key person insurance, particularly using the multi-life guarantee approach. Chris is going to share his approach to business owners and how to protect businesses from disruption by losing key executives through death, disability, or departure. We encourage you to use the chat box or raise your hand to ask a question. Also, all attendees are going to be in a drawing for a CE voucher and Starbucks gift card, and we'll announce the winner at the end. Thank you for tuning in. Chris, let's start off with some questions.
Sounds good.
How do you initially meet your clients for this?
Well, thanks, Brendan, for the invite to be back on the BREW. It's good to see you. So I'm very fortunate. I'm part of a larger insurance agency called M3 Insurance, and we do both employee benefits and property and casualty insurance. So a lot of our clients work with us at M3 already in the aspect of business insurance and risk management. So we have a lot of clients that we work with already. I would argue that key person life insurance is business insurance and risk management. So it's a very easy conversation for me to have with M3 clients. And in fact, a lot of our advisors at M3 will introduce me as our firm's life insurance or key person life insurance specialist. So that's not how I meet all of my clients, but certainly a good chunk of them.
And, for those that aren't part of a big conglomeration like M3, I don't know if conglomeration is the right word, but I used it, so we're going to roll with it. Agency, yes. Any suggestions on how they might get into this space?
Into the business market?
Yeah.
I think you could try to find a P&C agency in your area that doesn't do this internally and look for referrals from a P&C agency. I know other people have had success with attorneys that are in the business market, as well as accounting firms.
Wonderful. What are some of the business risks that you help, identify?
So in this world of key person life insurance, the big risk is premature death, right? And sometimes disability. So what happens to a business if a key executive or an owner passes away prematurely? That's a big business risk because a lot of things are going to happen after that, right? The business, especially if it's smaller, mid-size, could lose customers, revenue. Other members of the executive team may leave. If, let's say, a CEO passes away, they're going to have to spend a bunch of money to find a new replacement. They may have to pay down bank debt. If this person that passes away is an owner, that's going to trigger their shareholder agreement for a share repurchase. So those are all risks that come up if you have a premature death of an executive or an owner. And one of the ways that I try to kind of make this easy to understand for some of our clients is I'll equate this to kind of basic financial planning for families. So I know we've got a lot of advisors and planners on this call. if you have a young family that you're working with, husband and wife, married, couple kids, mortgage, most people would agree that that family should have a will, maybe a trust, and some life insurance, right? That's basic financial planning. Small and mid-sized businesses are pretty similar. They need to have an operating agreement or shareholder agreement and life insurance to fund that, and life insurance on their key executives.
And typically a buy-sell as well, which is maybe in the operational agreement.
Yeah, buy-sell agreement, shareholder agreement, same thing.
Have businesses been aware of these risks when you bring them up?
Yeah, I would say most times when I meet with a prospective client, they're aware of this. A lot of times they just haven't taken any action, or maybe they did 10 years ago. So a big role that I have, I consider one of my jobs, is to convince people to take action on this subject. Because if the need is there or the risk is there and you don't buy key person life insurance, the risk doesn't go away. So my question back to the client would be, if you need this type of coverage because of the risk of a key individual passing away, and you don't buy the life insurance, what is your plan? And then kind of just be quiet, because they have to have a plan. If something happens, and I've got a couple different medical groups I'm working with right now, where it's physicians that own their practice. So you've got, let's say, 10 physicians, they own the practice in equal ownership, and they're producing revenue for the practice. Obviously, they're active physicians. If one or two of them were to pass away, you kind of have a double jeopardy, right? You have a loss of revenue because they're not producing anymore for the practice, plus the remaining partners need to repurchase those shares. So the question is, if you don't buy key person life insurance to help with that risk, what is your plan?
Chris, it's almost like you were aware of the questions I was going to ask, because my next question is, what industry groups does this resonate better with? I'm guessing physician practices are probably going to be on that list.
Yeah, that's one of them, Brendan. So that would be one of them. I think it kind of goes across most industries, to be honest with you: manufacturing, medical, law. I guess based on my experience, probably the best industry group to work with is construction firms. I've got a lot of construction companies that I work with for key person life and key person disability. And I think that's probably because they deal with risk all the time, right? I mean, they've got cranes and they're pouring cement and wearing hard hats. So they're pretty in tune to risk and insurance to help with that risk. But the other thing is, with a lot of my construction clients, is you'll have a situation where maybe you've got 4, 5, 6 guys or gals that started this construction company, never thought it would be worth a whole lot. Now it's worth millions of dollars. They have a buy-sell agreement, and they really want to make sure they have the insurance in place to cover the valuation of the business. So I think when you kind of look at kind of just a lot of these construction companies are closely held, they're worth a lot of money, and they deal in risk quite a bit just based on their industry. I probably have a disproportionate amount of clients in the construction space.
You brought up there, obviously key man life insurance, but you also brought up DI, or disability insurance, as well. Can you explain how that differs and how a business would use that as well?
Or a key person?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of the same thing, right? And what I explain to people is, you should purchase the key person life insurance because you have a need. But the life insurance doesn't do anything if you have half a heart attack or get hit by a bus and survive, right? So I always try to bring up the importance of having key person disability, which are like the life insurance policies. They're owned by the business on behalf of a partner, with proceeds paid back to the business, in case there's a disability that doesn't lead to death, or at least not right away. So without that disability insurance, you're kind of bolting up and locking the front door, but you're leaving, your side door wide open. So I do try to talk about that a lot. It's a harder lift, certainly, because the disability insurance can require more underwriting. It can be more expensive. It usually is, but it's certainly something that I think you need to talk about and bring up because it happens, right? The likelihood of someone having a disability prior to age 65 is far more likely than that person dying prior to age 65.
And that's why it costs more.
I'm not as smart as you, Brendan, so I'll take your word for it.
Fair enough. I'm not an actuary, but I have played in this field for a while, so I think I might be right there. Obviously, you talked about that physician group. Do you have any other recent success stories that you'd like to share with the group?
Yeah, so the physician one's a great story. There was another client working with E4. We just finalized about a month ago, and this was actually four guys that came together, created a partnership to purchase a building in Madison. They tore it down and they're doing a redevelopment, mixed use. And it's a great story because these guys, 4 different nationalities, different backgrounds. One guy was in real estate, another guy owned a restaurant, and they came together and kind of put all their chips in and decided to do this project. And so we put in life insurance to fund their buy sell. It turned out really well, but I like this story because I drive by this site on my way to work every day. So, I saw it get torn down as we're working on the underwriting. Now the policies are placed, the building's coming out of the ground. So it's kind of a nice, reminder of some of the work that we do and why it's important.
Well, hopefully it turns into the real American success story and
Should.
works out.
Yep.
On the flip side, are there any horror stories you have or times that you've witnessed where a client hasn't taken action?
Yeah, I think probably more than you would like to think. People delay and then something happens with their health. I try to joke with people and say, as you age, you're typically going to get older and less healthy, right? So take action now. And I had a friend of mine that was looking at life insurance. He's got some kids, big mortgage. He built a big house, and he kind of waited and never bought the life insurance, and finally took action, and then had a heart attack during underwriting and survived, thankfully. But now he's uninsurable, at least for a while. So I think kind of waiting and kicking this down the road sometimes is one of the worst things you can do because you don't know what's going to happen in life. And the insurance, I tell clients of mine too, the application isn't going to do you any good if something happens and it's sitting on your desk. The policy before it's delivered isn't doing anyone any good when it's sitting on my desk. So let's get this done and placed and in force. So yeah, I do see that, unfortunately, where people just delay and then they have an issue and they're never able to get the insurance put in place.
Well, I like your 2 points of creating urgency there because you are absolutely right. It's not going to do anything on anybody's desk.
Nope.
Got to move it forward. So, well, thank you, Chris. This is always a joy. If anybody has questions, feel free to use the chat box. Or unmute yourself and just pipe in and ask Chris or myself a question. I'd ask Chris, but while we're waiting, I'd like to remind everybody that today's brew and our full library is being recorded and shared on our brew blog. Chris, would you like to pick a number between 1 and 30 for our giveaway today?
How about the number 2?
Ooh, number 2. I could go with a lot of jokes here, but number 2 is Zach Schnitzler. He's our winner. So congrats to Zach. Be on the lookout for a complimentary CE voucher and Starbucks gift card. It'll be coming your way from all of us here at E4 Insurance Services. Next week's brew, we'll continue our March focus planning series on key person insurance with a case study led by the E4 duo, Steve Walker, Vice President of Institutional Accounts, and Brady Searle, Senior VP of Disability Income. They've been working together to educate employers on how they can use insurance to improve their retention plans for key employees and protect their families. Thank you to everyone for attending. Thank you, Chris, for being here and sharing some wisdom. We will see you next week on the Brew.